Millionaire single dad watches Waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. The bell above the door gave a soft chime as Gavin Carter stepped into the modest diner, the air thick with the scent of fresh bread and roasted coffee. It wasn't the kind of place he normally went to, too far from the world of glass towers, 5-star menus, and power lunches. But tonight wasn't about business. Tonight was about her. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, sat in the wheelchair beside him, small, quiet, wrapped in a pale pink coat, her head tilted down, fingers twitching against her dress, eyes unfocused. She didn't look around, didn't speak. Just existed like a shadow of the child she used to be. The hostess, barely out of her teens, greeted them with a practiced smile. "Table for two?" "Something quiet," Gavin said, his voice even, low. They were led to a booth near the back. He slid in across from Lily, picked up the menu but didn't really look at it. His eyes stayed on his daughter. "Lily," he said gently, "are you hungry?" No answer. There never was. He exhaled slowly. He hated this feeling. The helplessness. In boardrooms, he was a lion. Deals, mergers, empires, all within his command. But across the table from his own child, he felt like a stranger. A waitress approached, early 20s, soft hazel eyes, a faint smear of flour on her sleeve like she'd been baking earlier. "Good evening. I'm Vanessa. I'll be taking care of you." Gavin nodded, distracted. "Grilled chicken for me. And something soft for my daughter. Maybe soup." Vanessa's eyes moved to Lily, her brow furrowed, but kindly. "She okay with chicken noodle? It's homemade." "That's fine," Gavin said. She smiled. "Be right back." He reached for his phone, scrolling through emails. Pointless. His thoughts were stuck on Lily. Would she eat tonight? Or push the spoon away like always? A few minutes later, Vanessa returned. She placed the dishes down with care. "Let me know if you need anything else." Gavin picked up the spoon. "All right, sweetheart. Let's try." He dipped it into the soup and brought it toward Lily's lips. Before it got close, her arm jerked, knocking the spoon aside. It clattered to the table, broth splashing onto the white cloth. A few heads turned. Gavin closed his eyes. Not in anger, in defeat. He reached again. Gentler this time. "Lily, please." Still nothing. Her fingers clutched the hem of her dress, distant, silent. Then, "May I?" He looked up. Vanessa stood beside him, not intruding, asking, "What?" Gavin frowned. She nodded toward the spoon. "May I try?" Normally he'd say no. Lily wasn't some charity case. He had hired the best specialists in the country. None had gotten through. But something about Vanessa, calm, patient, confident, made him pause. He handed her the spoon. Vanessa crouched beside Lily, meeting her at eye level. She didn't rush. "Hi, Lily," she said warmly, like greeting an old friend. No baby voice, no pity. Lily didn't react. Vanessa dipped the spoon into the soup. "When I was little, my mom used to tell me soup is like a warm hug for your tummy." She held up the spoon, still not pushing, still just offering. "Would you like a little hug?" Gavin stared, not daring to speak. Lily's fingers twitched. Vanessa smiled. "Just one sip, sweetheart." And then, slowly, Lily parted, her lips. Vanessa guided the spoon gently. She swallowed. It was just a sip. But for Gavin, it was everything. Then, Lily did something even more shocking. She looked at Vanessa. Not past her, not through her, at her, and smiled. Gavin felt the world tilt. Lily hadn't smiled, not once, since his wife died. The din of the restaurant faded. All that remained was Lily, and the woman who had somehow reached her. His voice broke. How did you do that?" Vanessa looked up, her eyes soft but unreadable. "I just talked to her, as if it was the simplest thing in the world." Gavin had no words. He just sat there, watching the woman who had cracked through years of silence, and in the space left behind something stirred in his chest. Hope. Gavin couldn't sleep that night. Long after Lily was tucked into bed, he sat in his study, untouched whiskey in hand, haunted by the image of Vanessa kneeling beside his daughter. The tenderness, the response, the smile. He had paid fortunes to experts, but none had done what a diner waitress had done in 5 minutes. Who was she? He picked up his phone. Find out everything you can about a woman named Vanessa Lane, he told his assistant. The next evening, Gavin returned to the diner. It was quieter. The dinner crowd had thinned. He spotted Vanessa near the back, wiping down a table. Flour smudged her cheek again. She moved quickly, practiced. When she looked up and saw him, her eyes widened. "Mr. Carter, we need to talk. I'm working. This won't take long." She hesitated, then led him toward the service station, away from the other customers. "You were incredible with Lily," Gavin said. Vanessa blinked. "I just treated her like a kid. Not a patient." "Exactly." Silence fell. Gavin studied her. "You've worked with kids like her before, haven't you?" Vanessa stiffened. "I used to babysit, that's all." "You're lying." Her jaw clenched. "I did some digging," Gavin continued. "You studied special education at NYU, top of your class. Then 2 years ago, nothing. You dropped out. No record since. And now you're waiting tables?" Vanessa's hands balled into fists. "That's not your business." "It is," Gavin said quietly. "If you're the only person who's ever made my daughter smile." She flinched, just slightly, but he saw it. Then, stillness. Finally, Gavin exhaled. "Come work for me. She needs a caregiver," Gavin said quietly. "Someone she trusts, someone she responds to." His voice softened. "She responds to you." Vanessa stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then she let out a dry laugh. Bitter, humorless. "You don't even know me," she said, shaking her head. "And you think hiring me is a good idea?" "I know enough," Gavin replied, unwavering. "I know you're smart, you're patient, and I know whatever made you leave your past behind, it wasn't because you weren't good at it." Vanessa inhaled sharply and looked away for the first time. Gavin saw it then, something flickering in her eyes. Pain, deep and buried. "I can't," she whispered. Gavin's brow creased. "Vanessa, I can't," she said again, more firmly this time. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not who you think I am." He didn't respond right away. The silence between them stretched until finally he asked, "Why?" She hesitated, her throat working like she was trying to swallow a boulder. Then she shook her head. "I've got tables to clear." Just like that, she turned and walked away. Gavin watched her go, his jaw clenched. Whatever had driven Vanessa Lane away from the career she was born for, it still owned her, and for the first time in years, Gavin wanted to understand. He wasn't a man who let things go. Not when they didn't add up. Not when someone told him no. And Vanessa Lane. She was a question that demanded an answer. After that conversation, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The flash of grief in her eyes, the tremble in her voice, the way she had flinched. Like she'd been struck by something invisible. She wasn't just some waitress who happened to be good with children. She was hiding from something. And Gavin intended to find out what. It didn't take long. With his resources, tracing her past was simple. NYU, special education and therapy. Professors had called her brilliant, compassionate, one of the most promising students they'd ever seen. And then, 2 years ago, she vanished. No graduation, no diploma, just disappeared. Gavin scrolled through report after report, brows furrowed. Why would someone abandon something they were so clearly meant to do? Then he found it. A small obituary. A photo. A smiling boy with bright eyes. Caleb Lane, age 10. Gavin's stomach dropped. The obituary was sparse. No details. Only that Caleb had passed away suddenly. But it was enough. Vanessa hadn't just studied children like Lily. She had lived it. And she had lost. That night, Gavin returned to the diner. He didn't sit. He didn't order. He just waited. When Vanessa finally noticed him standing at the entrance, she sighed, rubbing a hand over her face. "Mr. Carter, you're back." "We need to talk," Gavin said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Vanessa crossed her arms. "I thought we already did." "Not about this." There was something in his voice that made her pause. Gavin nodded toward the door. "Let's go outside." She stared at him, lips pressed into a tight line. Then, slowly, she untied her apron and followed. The night air was cool. The street was mostly empty, just the occasional car humming by. Gavin turned to her. "I know about Caleb." Vanessa froze. Her breath hitched, and for a moment she looked like she'd been punched in the gut. Gavin's chest tightened, but he didn't stop. "I know he was your brother. I know he had cerebral palsy. And I know he—" "Don't," she said, her voice barely audible. "Why didn't you tell me?" Gavin asked. She let out a sharp, hollow laugh. "Because it's none of your business, that's why." He stepped closer. "You walked away from something you were meant to do, and I need to know why." "So what? You can fix me? Offer me another job I don't want?" "No," Gavin said. "I need to know, because you're the only person who's ever reached my daughter, and if you're not going to help her, then I deserve to know why." Vanessa's arms wrapped around herself like a shield. She stood still for a long moment, then spoke. "Caleb was everything to me." Her voice was flat, hollow, like she'd rehearsed this in her mind for years. "My parents weren't around much. It was just the two of us. I spent my whole life learning how to care for him. I promised him I'd always be there, that I'd help him get better." She took a shaky breath, but I couldn't. The words cracked like glass. Gavin's throat tightened. "One night, he got sick," she said. "Nothing serious. Just a fever. But it got worse, and worse. By the time we got to the hospital." She choked on the rest. It was too late. She wiped her eyes roughly, furious with herself. "I was studying to help kids like him. I was supposed to know what to do. But I didn't. I failed him." Her eyes met Gavin's, burning. "And I won't fail again." He stared at her, his heart pounding. This was why she refused. Not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. Because losing one child had destroyed her, and she couldn't risk loving another. Vanessa stepped back. "So now you know. Happy?" Gavin didn't answer. For the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to say. He asked her again the next day. "1 week," he said. "Just try. 1 week." She meant to say no, but something in his voice, something raw beneath the control, stopped her. And then there was Lily. Vanessa couldn't forget the little girl's soft smile, the way her eyes had focused on her, the way she had responded to a simple kindness. It had been so long since Vanessa had felt good at something, so long since she had felt needed. So despite every instinct screaming at her to run, she said, 1 week. Vanessa's throat tightened. It was that lullaby, the one she used to sing to Caleb even on his worst days. Especially on his worst days. He'd always asked for it, no matter how tired he was, no matter how much pain he was in. You are my sunshine. It had been theirs. She hadn't sung it since the night he died. She'd promised herself she never would. But now, watching Lily's small fingers curl gently around the edge of her blanket, she couldn't stop. The melody spilled out of her like breath, fragile and aching. Just outside the door, Gavin stood frozen in the hallway. He had been walking, past, intending to check in. Nothing more. When he heard the soft, wistful tune drifting into the corridor. He stopped cold. He had expected resistance from Lily, expected the 1-week trial to end in silence and failure. But now, listening to that quiet, heartbroken lullaby, he saw something he hadn't seen in months. Lily was sleeping, not restlessly, not with the soft whimpers or sudden gasps that had haunted her nights since the funeral. She was peaceful. Gavin gripped the doorframe, his jaw tightening. For the first time since his wife died, his daughter was at ease, and it wasn't because of him. It was because of her. Gavin Carter had conquered boardrooms. He'd stared down billion-dollar mergers and ruthless competitors without flinching, but nothing, not power, not money, had prepared him for the weight of this moment, seeing his little girl trust someone again, all because of Vanessa Lane. The changes that followed came slowly. At first, Gavin lingered nearby under the pretense of oversight. He told himself he was just making sure it was worth it, just a business transaction. But little by little he started showing up, not to observe but to join in. He held Lily's hand during therapy, helped her build towers out of blocks, sat beside her as Vanessa read fairy tales in a gentle voice, and somewhere along the line, without even realizing it, he was there every single day. One afternoon, while Vanessa guided Lily through a stretching routine, she glanced up and caught him watching, not casually, not distantly, but truly watching. His expression was unguarded, his eyes soft. "You don't have to be here, you know," Vanessa said quietly. Gavin didn't look away. Lily gripped his fingers as she struggled to balance herself. "I do," he said. Vanessa frowned. "Why?" He exhaled, slowly. "Because I should have been here a long time ago." Something tugged inside her, deep and unexpected. She'd assumed Gavin was just another detached father, too busy to raise his child. But now, looking at him like this, she saw the truth. He hadn't been absent because he didn't care. He'd been absent because he didn't know how not to be. As time passed, he changed. He laughed more. Not the stiff, polite chuckles she'd heard before, but real, unrestrained laughter. He soothed Lily when she cried. He learned how to be present. And Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. For so long she had told herself she was done, that she was too broken, too haunted by the past, to do this again. But with Lily, it didn't feel like work. It felt like coming home one evening. After a particularly good session, she and Gavin sat together on the back patio, sipping tea as the sun dipped behind the trees. Lily was asleep inside, tired but content. "She's improving so much," Vanessa murmured. Gavin nodded. "Because of you." Vanessa shook her head. "Because of herself. I'm just helping her see it." He turned to her, his gaze intense. "You do that for everyone, don't you?" She blinked. "What?" "You make people believe in themselves. Believe they can do things they thought they couldn't." His voice was quiet, but his meaning wasn't lost on her. She looked away. "I used to think that." He studied her and then, almost too softly, said, "You still do." Her heart pounded. For the first time, she saw Gavin not as a CEO or a grieving father, but as a man, and that terrified her. It happened suddenly. One moment they were sitting there, tension thick between them, and the next, Gavin reached for her hand. She didn't. "Pull away." His fingers brushed hers. Light. Testing. "Vanessa." He murmured. She looked up. Then he kissed her. It was slow. Gentle, not demanding, inviting, giving her space to stop him. But she didn't. For one stolen moment she let herself feel. The warmth of his lips. The way his hand cradled her cheek. The steady beat of his heart. And then, reality crashed in. Vanessa pulled back, breath ragged. "I can't," she whispered, rising abruptly. Gavin reached for her. "Vanessa, I'm sorry," she said, voice shaking. "I shouldn't have. This was a mistake." His brows pulled together. "A mistake?" She nodded, retreating. "I can't do this, Gavin." "Why?" he asked, standing now. "Because I can't," she said, louder now, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her standing. "Because I don't know how to lose someone again." His expression softened, but she was already turning, disappearing into the house, leaving him alone on the patio. And for the first time in years, Gavin Carter realized he didn't want to be alone anymore. Vanessa came to her decision the next morning. She walked into Gavin's office, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself think. Her fists were clenched at her sides. He looked up, startled. "Vanessa?" "I'm quitting," she said. The words cut like blades, but she forced them out. Gavin's eyes darkened. He leaned back slowly, folding his arms. "Come again?" "I can't do this anymore." His jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because I care too much. Because I'm scared of losing you. Because if I let myself believe in this, and it falls apart, I won't survive it." But she didn't say that. Instead, she shrugged. "It was always supposed to be temporary. I never planned to stay." "That's it?" he asked, voice low. "You're just walking away?" She nodded even as her stomach twisted. He stared at her. "What about Lily?" Vanessa flinched. "She'll be fine," she said, barely managing the words. "She won't," Gavin said, voice like gravel. "You know she won't." Vanessa bit her lip, eyes burning. She couldn't let herself think about Lily, about the way her tiny fingers had wrapped around her sleeve last night, about the way she had smiled. If she thought about it, she'd break. So she forced her gaze to meet Gavin's and delivered the cruelest lie she could find. "You just think you need me," she said. "But I was never supposed to be a permanent solution. You're just looking for someone to—" She hesitated, then finished. "To replace your wife." The silence was deafening. Gavin's entire body went still. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold steel. "Get out! Gavin, get out!" She turned and walked away, each step slicing her in two. 3 days after Vanessa left, Lily stopped eating. She stopped playing, stopped responding, stopped smiling. And Gavin, who had once believed nothing could shake him, realized too late how wrong he'd been. God, he tried. Gavin sat with Lily during meals, read her favorite stories, played the games Vanessa had taught them. But it was never the same. Lily didn't look at him the way she had looked at Vanessa. She didn't light up in his presence, and Gavin hated it. He hated that he wasn't enough. hated that Vanessa had walked away like they meant nothing. But more than anything, he hated how much he missed her. Gavin Carter had built his empire with logic, cold, precise, emotionless. Emotions had no place in boardrooms or billion-dollar deals. But none of that helped now, because logic couldn't fix the hole Vanessa had left behind. And worst of all, he wasn't the only one suffering. Lily was slipping away. At first, it was small things, pushing away her favorite foods, turning away from his hand, withdrawing. Then came the night that broke him. He passed her room and found her curled into a ball, silently crying into her pillow. Something inside Gavin cracked. He sat beside her, his chest tight. "Lily," he whispered. She didn't move. He gently brushed her hair back. "Talk to me, sweetheart." Her voice, when it came, was so soft, it nearly destroyed him. "Where's Vanessa?" He closed his eyes. For weeks he'd told himself he could fix this, that he could make it right, that Lily would move on. But he had been wrong. Vanessa hadn't been some temporary fixture. She had become part of them, family, and he had been too blind and too scared to admit it, until now. The diner was crowded when Gavin walked in, but he didn't care. He wasn't here for the food or the noise. He was here for her. And this time, he wasn't alone. Lily clung to him, her tiny arms looped around his neck, her face pale, eyes distant. Behind the counter, Vanessa was scribbling something on a pad, her hair messily tied back, her expression tired. When she looked up and saw them, she froze. For a long moment, the world held still. Then Vanessa's eyes locked on Lily, and her breath caught. She dropped the pen and came around the counter in a rush, falling to her knees in front of them, her hands trembling. "Lily," her voice broke. "Oh, sweetheart." Lily stared at her, uncertain. Then slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and touched Vanessa's cheek. That was all it took. The dam broke. Vanessa pulled her in, cradling her tightly, tears spilling down her face. Gavin watched, his throat tight. Then quietly, finally, he said the words he should have said long ago. "I need you." Vanessa froze. Her arms stayed wrapped around Lily, but her eyes lifted to his, hazel and shining. "I don't just need you because of Lily," he said, his voice raw. "I need you because of me." Her lips parted. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of letting you in, of what it would mean. But I can't do this without you." She didn't speak. She couldn't, because she wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But fear still curled like a fist inside her. And then, something happened. Lily, her hands unsteady, picked up a spoon. Everyone around them held their breath. She tried, fumbled, then fed herself a bite. One small bite. But to Gavin and Vanessa, it was everything. Vanessa gasped. "You did it, sweetheart." Gavin exhaled slowly, a smile tugging at his lips. "You really did." Then Lily giggled. It was soft, light, the sound of healing. And in that moment, Gavin knew. It wasn't just Vanessa who had changed Lily, she had changed him. He reached into his pocket, fingers tightening around the velvet box he'd been carrying for days. Vanessa was still wiping her tears, laughing quietly. "What is it?" she asked. He stepped forward, heart pounding. Then, without another word, he dropped to one knee. Vanessa froze. "Vanessa," he said softly, "marry me." Her hands flew to her mouth. Beside them, Lily clapped, completely unaware of the gravity of the moment. "Vanessa, say yes!" Vanessa laughed through her tears. shaking her head in disbelief. Gavin. He reached for her hand. I love you, he said, voice steady. I don't just want you in Lily's life. I want you in mine. She looked at him, and this time, it wasn't fear that filled her eyes. It was hope. It was trust. It was love. Vanessa let out a trembling breath, then whispered, Yes. Gavin slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, as Lily cheered beside them. For the first time in years, they weren't just three broken people trying to get through life. They were a family. Because love isn't just about finding someone, it's about choosing them, again and again. Gavin had believed love was something he'd lost. Vanessa had feared it was something she'd never be safe to feel again. But sometimes, the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. And love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about resilience, risk, and the courage to begin again.